to Oregon and other parts of the country, both through coaching clinics and through some Funiño festivals. He also wrote a book called Our Competition is the World, which is about player development. So without further ado, Stan, thanks for your time and looking forward to today.
I am too. I really appreciate the opportunity. And okay, so I'm going to begin with a little background about what Funiño is. And forward. I think we already have these under control. Everyone's on mute. There will be time at the end for questions. And if questions come up in the future about this presentation, we will provide an email that you can contact me at. And so I'm very passionate about this topic, this program, Funiño, that I learned from Horsefine. The title of this webinar is Introduction to Funiño. And the target audience is coaches of youth soccer players age 7 to 9, although this game is a fantastic tool and environment for all different ages. The content, what I'm going to focus on today is an explanation of the different elements of the Funiño game model or player development model, the field setup, basic rules of the game, sample game variations, sample corrective games or fun games, as I call them, what the training session structure looks like, and the benefits. I'll review that at the end, some of the benefits for younger players. So what is Funiño? And if I do, I apologize already for going quickly through this, but there is a lot to cover regarding the topic of Funiño and surrounding the environment of Funiño. So what is Funiño? The name was, this title was coined by Horsefine. It's in Spanish, he lived in Spain. And Funiño comes from fútbol a la medida del niño, which translates to soccer tailor-made for children, which could also be soccer to the age level or the development level of children. This is a player development program that was created by Horsefine. It's based on a 3v3 game with a number of variations of the game, which is the result of over 20 years of innovation, practice, and continued improvement that formed the basis of the official coaching manual for Spain, the Spanish Soccer Federation, starting in about 1993. And this development model has been used at many clubs around the world. Some of the bigger clubs such as FC Barcelona in Spain, Monterrey and Club America in Mexico, Inter Milan in Italy. This proven approach to introducing young children to the game of soccer has the emphasis on fun, so that children come to fall in love with the game from the earliest ages. I think this is the strength of the game. And I want to take just a quick moment to mention Horsefine. I had the fortune of getting to know Horsefine, and I spent about 5 years working with him, trying to bring Funiño to the United States. He unfortunately passed away in 2016, but the work that he did and his vision for child development and human development, which is basically what he's all about, through joy in sport, is what I'm trying to bring to the United States. He used Funiño to bring this message. So Funiño, above all, is about enjoyment of game and sport. Children should enjoy their playing time so they can develop a lifelong passion of the game. What does Funiño do? It basically recreates street soccer. We have many children who play soccer, but less play street soccer, and we really want to bring that element into our training sessions. The children are involved in lots of decision making, lots of realistic technical practice, skill practice, and lots of goals are scored. 3v3 basically equals a lot of fun where children are involved in the game. The second component of Funiño that is important to keep in mind is that it's age appropriate and step-by-step. There's a step-by-step process of cognitive learning. And Horst used to say that you don't teach calculus in first grade. You start with number awareness and then adding and subtracting, etc., and you build up. And this is the second important component of Funiño, that it is structured to increase complexity. So the ideal competition structures that Horst Vine recommended are as follows. Before the age of 7, basically, he talked about playing the game at home, playing with the ball, enjoying the ball at home with family. Multilateral tag games to get the kids moving. And then at 7, 8, and 9 comes the Funiño game with 3v3 on 4 goals. At 10 years old, they would progress to a 5v5 game, and at 11 and 12 to the 7v7 game. Size 3 balls are recommended for 6 to 9 years old, and size 4 for 10 to 12-year-olds. So this is what the field looks like, and it is a little different than a normal soccer field, but it is with these dimensions. You have 20 to 25 meter or yard width, and these can be adjusted to the level of your players. You have 23 to 28 yards long, approximately 12 or so, at least minimum of 12 yards between the 2 goals. So you establish 2 wide goals that you attack and 2 wide goals that you defend. They also have in this game a 6-yard scoring zone at each end. And in most of the games played in Funiño, you must be inside the scoring zone, your attacking scoring zone, in order to score. So why did Horst use 4 wide goals? Why did he believe in this? And I have there are more reasons than these, but these are the main ones. It encourages wide play and the use of wings in the attack. Generally, when you play with central goals, the players tend to stay central, and the game develops in just a smaller portion of the field where there's more traffic. The 4 wide goals help to open the game, allowing younger players more time when they have the ball, because they aren't always, they're still learning how to manipulate the ball, and they need a little more time on the ball. This helps to open up the game a little more. It stimulates a deeper understanding of the game, whereas instead of just kicking the ball straight forward, it helps to have the players develop a sense of moving the ball from side to side, keeping possession of the game, keeping the ball on the ground. And it helps develop peripheral vision, perception, and decision-making skills, all within the game. So basic rules. Each team has 3 players and 1 substitute. Players rotate in after each goal or every 2 or 3 minutes. And that's up to the coach to recognize if someone's been out too long. And this game is so active and so engaging that players do tend to get tired. And so they do need a rest and gets to take some water. The coach starts the game by throwing the ball in the air in the center of the pitch. After a goal, The game is restarted at the half line by the team that was scored against. No offside in this game. There are no static positions, so the players are learning to play in different positions on the field and moving, and they learn shapes such as the triangle. The triangle shape is the basic fundamental shape in the game of soccer, and they learn this through the game of Funiño. There are no throw-ins. If the ball goes out of play in touch, the attacking player restarts the game by placing the ball on the ground. And this is the key difference between what we normally have done in the past. The player is allowed to pass the ball or dribble the ball into play, depending on the situation. There's also a 5-yard buffer that needs to be enforced so that the player, the defending team doesn't come and encroach right onto the player with the ball. They have time to look and see what's happening, and then decide whether it's the best option is to pass or dribble the ball in. Goal kicks are restarted anywhere in the 6-yard defensive scoring zone. And so anywhere, say the blue, see the red team's going this way, up toward the red goals. And this part right here is their defensive scoring zone. They would begin the play from there by dribbling or passing the ball. And instead of corner kicks, as they normally are in the regular soccer, the ball is basically put on the edge of the scoring zone, the attacking scoring zone, and possession is kept by playing the ball back through a pass or a dribble. And there are no goalkeepers. So in terms of scoring, in order to score, in most of the games, goals must be scored within the scoring zone. So if the ball has not passed the line of the scoring zone, it does not count. And this is done so that players are encouraged to develop the game, and it's much more challenging than just kicking the ball from farther distances. There's much more thinking involved in how do we get to this point in the scoring zone and then score the goal. Shots must be then, the ball has to pass over the scoring zone line, and then it is valid as a goal. And we touched on these, but I wanted to show visuals. No throw-ins. The ball is placed down when it's out of touch. No throw. So the ball is dribbled in or self-pass or dribble, or it's passed to a teammate. And here are the 5 yards, 5 steps that are given. Now a player can take the ball and put it in play whenever they want, but you can, if it happens that the opponents are getting too close, then they need to back up. Game variations. There are over 40 variations of the game. I would recommend, if you're going to implement this Funiño, to start with some basic game variations of the game. For example, in one variation, all team members of the attacking team must touch the ball before scoring. So if you have a player it encourages team play and possession of the ball. And each of these variations is put in place by the coach, depending on what the coach wants to see and what he wants the players, or he or she wants the players to learn. 3 balls on the field to start the game. So if the coach wants players to be working on 1v1, they can start in 1v1. And then as soon as the ball is scored, then the play continues until all the balls are scored. So you start with 1v1, but then it turns into 2v1, and then 2v, it depends on what else is happening in the game. There could be a 1v1, and then the other 2 are playing against each other. In order to score, here's a 3rd variation. The attacker must dribble the ball over the end line. So you take the goals away, the nets away if you have nets, and just have 2 markers for the goal. After scoring, the attacking team gets the ball again and can attack the goals at the other end. So this would encourage quick counterattacking if that's what you want your players to work on. And the last one I have here, to score, the attacking team must play a back pass from the opponent's end line. And this encourages penetration to the end line and then a back pass before scoring. And at this point, I want to show a couple of quick videos, and they'll give a good idea of what the game looks like. At an a little more advanced level, this first video is a team that is, or the teams are looking at probing more than they are counterattacking. They're keeping possession. And you can see that how the triangle has been learned in depth. So they're in their defensive scoring zone starting to play. And the green team is keeping possession, but trying to probe and finding spaces behind the orange team. And you can see that there are things to work on here. But keep in mind that you can see how engaged the players are. It's very difficult to hide in this game. Player learns interchange of position in this goal here. And in the second video, now this game is tailored to
into position.
This game is about penetration more than probing. There's a player that's in an advanced position, like a forward would be, and the ball must be played to the forward.
The third game focuses on through passing to a front runner. Each team has one attacker in the shooting zone, where he runs into positions to receive passes from his teammates in midfield. This front runner and the midfielders are not allowed to leave their assigned zone. After each second goal, the front runner swaps places with one of the midfielders. In the second half of the game, the attackers are not allowed to score. The midfielders must therefore push forward quickly to score a goal.
So this is encouraging running from behind, where the midfielders, once the ball is played forward to the front runner, then the players in the midfield can run. They must run forward in order to score the goal.
The opposition players are also allowed to leave the midfield so that they can challenge the attackers and prevent them from scoring. A good understanding between passer and front runner is very important.
There are a lot of combinations between teammates. When to dribble, when to pass. These are all decisions that they're making as the game is happening. Okay. Go back to. There you got 2. Okay, the playground, wide goals, rules, variations. Okay, now that we've seen the game, how do the players get to this position? This is what the practice structure is about. And if Funiño is based on the practice play model, where instead of having a warm-up at 7 years old, which they don't need, they go right into playing a game of 3v3 at the beginning of practice. And this would be with using the general game without any variation on it. Then the coach, after about, this would be 10 to 12 minutes or so, and once that is done, there would be a water break, and then a preparatory or fun game, which could be for different skill improvement or multilateral tag games that are used. And I'm going to go through some examples of what these look like. Then you would introduce another variation of the game, of the Funiño game, 3v3. Apply another fun game, which could be skill improvement, could be attack games, and I'll show some of those, and then end with a game. So the players are, most importantly, they're playing the game throughout the practice instead of waiting the entire practice to play the game like we have done in the past. So if this is how Horace starts out teaching players how to attack, how to go from one side to another. So you have 3 players on one end, say you have 6 players, they can attack both at the same time. So, but they're really going against 0. There are no defenders. So this side is attacking, these 3 are attacking these 2 goals, and these 3 on the other end are going the opposite way. And what I like about this is that you can use these attacks, and you can give 10 attacks per team and measure how many are successful, how many goals do they score. And if it's very easy for them, then you will quickly move on, and I'll show you what that looks like. We just add a defender, and then we start getting pressure. But the very, very beginning is 3 against 0, and you have them go from one side to another. Things you can introduce in this type of practice are passing into a teammate's run, which would be, and we ask the players, you have them try it, and then if they don't do things correctly, for example, if the ball is passed behind, you ask them where's a better place to play the ball to get to the other end quickly. And he would actually time, he would start out, once they've been introduced to this, he would start timing the players to see how many seconds it could take them with all 3 of the players touching the ball, getting to the other end and scoring. So passing into a teammate's run, attacking as a group, and interchanging position is another one that you can introduce here, where at least one player has to change position with another one of the attacking players before scoring. And what I would do at practices is repeat this preparatory 3v0. So this is prep for the Funiño game. And I would have them do 10 tries and see how many they would get successful. And then if they get somewhere around 80% consecutively, then you can move to the next preparatory game, which would be a 3v1. And so you'd have one team do 10 attacks against one player, you could rotate the defenders coming out, have them send one player out as a defender. And some of the concepts in this game, when is the best moment to pass the ball? And I have seen, even at our national youth 17 level, I saw recently players that are not passing the ball at the correct time, it basically kills a counterattack. So if the player in the middle is advancing the ball, dribbling, our players need to understand when to release the ball, not too early or not too late. And it's basically, you need to get them to understand that just as the defender commits toward them, the player with the ball, that's the best moment to pass the ball. So these are things that you work on. Where should the pass be made? Should it be made to feet of a teammate or into space? Why is it best for the central player to start the play? And continually ask the questions of the players until you see that if they don't understand something, then you can show them. But it's always best to try to get it from them first And this is how the progression goes. So we started 3v0, and then we added one defender. So this one defender. And now we have a second defender, which is a +1. So it's not 3v2 yet. It starts as a 3v1, and then this other defender can come into play later. And then, so the 3v1 +1 would end up going to 3v2, 3v2 +1, and then the full 3v3. So I'm going to include a few sample corrective or fun games. I call them fun games. This game I got in Brazil when I was at the CBF, which is the National Training Center, doing their youth license. And it's not too expensive to go out. This is one tool I would get as a youth coach, are hula hoops. Just 3 hula hoops. And I use them in a tag game. So you can do, this one is a dribbling game. And once you have the field set up, I call this the playground. You can play the 3v3 game here, but you can also do all kinds of other games. You don't have to set up anything else, any other areas. You might make it a little smaller depending on the number of players, but you can still use the Funiño field, or the playground as they call it, for all these fun games. So this is a dribbling game. Players have to start in this defending scoring zone. They have to go from one scoring zone to the other without having the hula hoop over their head. And this is the dribbling games. Another dribbling game, I think this one is very powerful and should be repeated a lot. The kids love this game. It's I call it the penny monster game. And say you have 8 players, 6 dribblers, all each with a ball, and you can see the red would be the monsters who start, and they have to go and steal a ball from a dribbler and then score it on any of the 4 goals. If the ball is stolen, the player who lost the ball can contest it, so it basically works transition within the game as well. Players can steal their ball back. And it's if the player's ball does end up in the goal, though, say one of the blue players, the dribblers, ball ends up in any of the 4 goals, then they become a red. They go over and they put on a penny, and they become a penny monster. And then they they go ahead and steal the dribbler's ball. So then what you get is a challenge for the better dribblers. The more advanced players are challenged because as the game goes along, there are more defenders, more monsters stealing balls. And it's a lot of chaos, and players of this age love chaotic games. If you want to work on passing, you can get players and partners. This is another really good game. It's a pass through a gate and then move to another gate. And you can do this by timing them. How many passes can you get in a certain number of seconds that you set? And then they can measure that. How many, if they got 10 passes the first time, then they try to beat that the next time that they play the game. Some of the benefits of Funiño, and there is a document that I'm going to make available with 100 benefits of Funiño. I'm not going to go through all of them at this point, but I did put down 10 of the benefits. Number 1 is players develop a love of the game, and greater numbers return to play the following year. And I think this is one of Forest Vine's aims, and I think it should be one of our aims, is to make our training sessions fun so that our players, and challenging of course as well, but fun so that they want to come back, that there are no, number 2 touches on less interruptions, less lecturing from coaches, less lines, less drills, where we tend to have to do a lot of drills, many practices across the United States, where our players are not asked to think and develop their perception. Less laps and running without the ball. Almost everything at this age group should be heavily influenced by the ball, with the ball. And then less frustration for children and more time enjoying the game. Number 3, playing in games facilitates free expression. This is what we want in our players. This is what we want from our players. Free expression, so that they are the ones making the decisions and discovering, rather than telling them what to do, so they become robotic. We want to stay away from that. Age-appropriate step-by-step training. So we don't train them like adults. We don't put 7-year-olds on an 11v11 field with 11 players or 22 players if we can avoid it. In fact, Horsevine suggests not going to an 11v11 game until age 14. There's a high level of engagement. You saw in the videos, all the players are involved. You cannot hide in this game. Many goals are scored. Kids love to score goals. The player's self-esteem and confidence grows as they develop, which is very important. Players develop technical ability that is applied in a game realistic setting. Instead of having players just dribbling around cones, which they may need some of at the beginning, very beginning. But as soon as they have enough technical ability, they should be playing in small-sided games where they have to decide when to dribble, when to pass. Players enhance their level of peripheral vision and perception, which is very important. The wide goals help with this, that it opens up the wide channels of the game instead of all playing the whole game in the middle of the field. And the result is, if this is done over time, and I have seen this, I've been a coaching director and I've seen us implement this at trainings and even at the rec level in their games, what kind of improvements that players can make in a short amount of time. But over time, you develop more intelligent players who become independent of the coach. Very important that players are, when they're in the game, they're making their own decisions. We're not telling them constantly what to do, where to run, who to pass to, what to do. And this has important long-term implications, helping the players to develop their game so they can play at a higher level and enjoy the game for a longer period and not drop out. And then the last one I chose from the 100 benefits, soccer becomes a unifying, not divisive force in society, promoting the virtues of patience, friendship, generosity, and hope for the greater good. And this is one of Horsevine's messages that he tried to get across. So I know this was a lot in a very short amount of time, and there's a lot more to go through. Horst has a number of books that are on Amazon, easy to find, and this presentation will be available, so you can see how the measurements of the field, how to set things up. And thank you very much for attending. This is a passionate topic for myself, and I really enjoy seeing training sessions, practice sessions where kids are moving, they're thinking, they're with a ball, they're in small numbers, so they're always engaged in the game, and that is what the kids like. And that is the end of presentation.
Dan, thank you so much for your presentation today. We've had a few questions come in. One just came through to everyone, I believe. The younger kids tend to play bunch ball. How can Funiño help them understand the importance of spacing?
Yes, the spacing, when you do the preparatory games and you prepare them in a more controlled environment, you can have the players attack in a triangle. You can have them start out in a triangle always, and once they realize how important it is to play in a triangle, that there are two players to pass to, and there's a player in depth, the wide goals helps to open up the game so that there is not the bunch ball happening. Once these things are practiced during the training sessions, 3v0, for example, and then 3v1. The players are not starting out bunched together. And they begin to see how important it is to maintain space and how important spacing is within the game. And it doesn't happen overnight. You're going to see some of the bunch ball, but then you redirect them. And some of it is through how you put a variation on the game. You may put one player forward, for example, that has to stay forward, or one player has to stay behind. And then you have one player behind in a 2v2, which opens up a lot more space. And that is how you can avoid bunch ball, because it does really help with avoiding bunch ball.
Awesome, thank you. After playing Funiño consistently, do you find that the players tend to get bored? And do you always do variations?
The variations should be done, if you say you do it 4 or 5 times, maybe 4 or 5 practices, and you do the same rotation of variations, then you can continue to rotate them so they don't get bored. And they're not just playing the entire time with one variation. You say you play a 10-minute, 12-minute period, a game, and then you do a fun or corrective game, another variation different than the first one you played. So even in that one training session, you're getting 3 different variations of the game. And I have not seen them get bored. They want to be in the game. The only time they might get bored is if they are the 4th player and they're out. If the player, in that situation, what you can do is have a ball off on the touch line where the substitute is, and you can have them doing technical work, dribbling a ball, isolated technical practice while they're out, and then they go back in.
All right, I got a 2-part question for you. Is there a format of Funiño that you find to work the best? And then from 7 to 9 years old, what skill do you prioritize?
From 7 to 9, I think it's not an either or. I would imagine we're thinking about dribbling or passing. And the great thing about Funiño is that you are working on both within the game. And if you see there's a deficiency in dribbling, which there is going to be, or passing at that age, they have a lot to work on. Then you bring a fun game that they can work, that you can use to develop those skills. But in the Funiño game, the format, I think, I'm not sure what format refers to, if it refers to variation, what variation, because it is a 3v3 game generally. I don't know if I have a favorite one. I do at the beginning, I like to have a player behind, because one player behind really helps to develop the triangle. That's what I've seen. Once they have developed that, then it's a lot easier. So they don't find themselves all flat, all up at once, or bunched together. There's always someone And I learned one thing I learned in Argentina in a game model that from a Vélez Sarsfield coach was to secure the ball. When we win the ball back, secure the ball. And that's what this game, a game with someone in depth. Okay, once they learn that triangle and someone's in depth, then there's always a place to secure the ball, either wide or back to the deep line player. So that would probably be my favorite format of at the beginning, and then it just changes. There is a great game where you have, it's a messy game, we call it. It's one of Horst's variations where you have one player start with the ball against three, and they have to dribble, you know, if you have a more advanced player, but you can give everyone a chance to try to take on three opponents and score on any of the 4 goals. They start in the middle. So there are a lot of fun variations of the game.
It sounds like your imagination will be the only thing that limits you when it comes to Funiño.
It really is, because you know, if the coach comes up with something brand new, or even a player does, if they have an idea, you could go try it out and see how much fun it is, and see if it works and captures their imagination, their attention. It keeps them engaged.
Well, I have a couple more questions for you, Stan. When thinking about player development for a club and a club implementing a player development plan, does Funiño itself develop players, or is there other things that you would suggest to help develop the player?
I would say that Funiño is the main driving force. And I can tell you what we did at Hillsborough Soccer Club in Oregon. We would have training sessions where we would have 7 to 9-year-old teams train at the same time, or at least multiple teams training at the same time. So we could have players with different abilities playing against each other, different players playing with and against each other. The focus becomes mainly on the player. We're not developing a team to win at that age group. It's just, if they do, that's great. And we had a lot of success with teams playing at that, you know, that were developed in Funiño. But the other thing you could do is encourage players, model technical training, whether you do it before the practice, after the practice, or on a different day. Maybe the club can offer technical skill training by itself, the isolated skill training, and then have them do practice at home and encourage that as much as possible. If the kids love to play the game, they're going to go home. They're going to want to watch their favorite players on YouTube. They're going to want to, you know, emulate players and practice at home. The more they do, the better prepared they will be to play in the actual game.
All right, I have one more question for you, Stan, and it's a 2-part question. Do you recommend varying the width of the goals? And if so, does this change what the players are learning or the focus of your training session that day?
Yes, I think it depends on the skill level, the age and the skill level. If you have a really young, you know, 7-year-old player that doesn't have a huge sense of the game, and I would keep the width of the goals to 12, the minimum, and not widen them out so wide. So they can actually see what's in front of them. They tend not to see. If the goals are too wide, then a young player who hasn't developed any perception or peripheral vision focuses in on one goal only. But as the players become aware and they develop their perception and peripheral vision and understanding of that we need to keep the ball and move from one side to the other, to attack a different goal, then I would, you know, you can widen them out as the players are able to make those the longer passes in width.
All right.
That's my answer.
Is there anything we haven't spoken about today, Stan, that you would like to touch on before we end the call?
I'd like to go back to Forrest Vine's vision of what Funiño is about, and it's joy through sport. He was really he worried about obesity and childhood obesity and things like that. But most of it was about child development, human development through sport and the joy of sport. And I think we really need to keep in mind that the most important thing we teach at this age level is the joy and the love of the game. Because too many of our players drop out. We should not label players as future professionals at 7, 8, and 9. We don't know which players are going to, spend their entire lives playing and become a highest level player. But we want to have the opportunity to allow all our players to develop to the best of their potential. And the only way they'll do that is staying in the game. And they won't stay in the game if they don't like it. And if they are standing around being told what to do without making decisions, those things turn them off. So that's why I have focused on Funiño. And hopefully somebody out there listening will take it, will investigate more, because I know this is a lot to understand in a short amount of time. So it will take some more investigating and searching and looking into, asking more questions. But it is doable. And we did it at Hillsborough Soccer Club where I worked. We had training sessions, and we had the recreational entire league doing Funiño with 4 goals and scoring zones. And from what I could see, we had more players coming back than we did prior.
Did you want to take a moment to talk about your book?
Sure. My book, Our Competition is the World, is based on concepts, ideas, things that I've learned traveling, basically, learning from top coaches around the world, mostly in Spain, Argentina, and Brazil, to be specific. And I put statistics in there to show, for example, how many more touches and decisions are made within a Funiño small game than with higher numbers. There's a lot of information in there on how to keep players engaged, to help them enjoy the game more. There are different types of games. I have graphics with a number of different games that you can incorporate with the rules and etc. That's about all I have.
Well, Stan, we appreciate you taking the time today to speak with us and our coaches and our directors to give a little insight into Funiño. For those of you that have been asking, we will put this up on our website at ncsoccer.org along with the slide deck. Stan has sent it to me in a PDF, so I'll put it up in a PDF format. And we will add the links, correct, Stan, for
Yes.
everything that he's mentioned today. Thank you for joining us. Special thank you to Nelson and OISA for helping put this together. Stan, the past 2 webinars we've done on coaching philosophy have been free play and play, practice, play. And so I think today was a great ending to our different philosophies on how to run a training session and be player-centered. So we greatly appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk about Funiño. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I really appreciate your time.
No problem.
Thanks again for everybody joining, and have a great day and a happy 4th of July.